The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio. I am your host, Rebecca Miller, along with our co-host, Otto Lohse. How are you, Otto?
Good morning, Rebecca. Nice day.
Kind of a nice day. It's
a little bit of rain, but
a little
not too bad.
stormy out here on Long Island, but other than that, it's always a nice day because I get to see you, Otto.
Hey, you know what? Compared to a lot of other places, we got a pretty good deal here. You know,
yeah,
a lot of snow and
for sure.
Tornadoes and houses being ripped apart, and we don't have that here. We're lucky.
That's for sure. That's for sure, Otto. So, and of course, I also want to introduce Kristina Lew, who is the Project Independence and You, the radio show producer who pulls these shows together every week with such extraordinary guests. I can't wait to get right into it. But also wanted to also acknowledge Dan Cox, who is, I mean, his title goes beyond anything that I really even think I would even be able to explain. He just is everything for Project Independence and You Radio. And we're so grateful that we're a team and we're all together today. So I do want to welcome our guests, Barbara Paskoff and Carol Pack, who are co-authors. And I know that we're having a little technical difficulty right now. We are actually doing a live radio show, but we also record for North Hempstead Television and other video type programming. So right now, I don't know if they're able to see us, but they can definitely hear us. So it's truly like an old time radio show where, we're just going to be talking like friends. But I'm so looking forward to learning about both Barbara and Carol and how they got to be these co-authors of these extremely wonderful books. Over 60 Shades of Gray and your book list. So I'm going to start with Barbara just because B comes before C. So welcome, Barbara. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Frustrated that I can't see all of you together, but I'm good. I'm glad to be here and thank you for inviting us.
And oh yeah, it's our pleasure. Thank you for joining us for an hour. And you'll be able to see everything. I know right now it might be a little frustrating, but it's just you'll hear our voices, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time.
Now this is what they call reality radio.
Reality radio. There you go. You heard it here. You heard it here through Barbara. Don't try to coin that phrase. So Carol, a little bit about you. Welcome to Project Independence and You, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited about our book, so we enjoy talking to everyone about it.
Wonderful. So before we get to this book, I would love a little background on both of you. So if you want to tell us how you got to be these authors and working together, where it all started, I'd love to hear. And Barbara, if you want to start.
Sure. In when my daughter was 16 years old, she was a teenager who knew what was going on behind her door. So every day she would come into the house and I would smell her for cigarette smoke and alcohol. And she would say, "Give me a life." And I said, "Better I should get one for myself." I went back to school for my master's and I wanted to study journalism. And I walked into LI News Tonight. Now this was 1988. I walked into LI News Tonight, which was a viable news station on the grounds of New York Institute of Technology. And they broadcast 5 days a week, a 15-minute show all over Long Island. So there I see Carol and Ken and Gary. I didn't know what the hell I was doing there. I mean, if I tell you, Carol took me under her wing. She was my professor. She was my guardian angel. And Ken and Gary, they were wonderful, and they taught me everything I know. And Carol and I developed a friendship, needless to say. And here we are over the years. Prior to this, oh yes, broadcast journalism. I worked on PBS as a broadcast journalist. I became a producer there. We produced health documentaries. And then I met my business partner there, and we opened up our own television production company. Having said that, stuff got in the way, and I retired. And Carol and another friend of ours would always celebrate our birthdays being lunch, being dinner. And Carol said, "Who would like to write a book?" And my hand goes up. I
Right.
will let Carol finish this story because, according to Carol, I always get it wrong. But I will say this. During the years prior to us getting together, I had written 2 books, unpublished, but Carol would come over every week, once a week, and we would edit together, have dinner, and our friendship just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I love her. And that's
Aw.
on my end.
Carol,
So
quite an
this
introduction.
really, she comes in as a student, and she was one of those students who blossomed before us, becoming a student journalist of the year for the press club, and just excelling at what she wanted to do. So I was very happy to meet Barbara. And because she was a returning student coming for her master's degree, she was older, we were closer in age. So we developed a friendship, and she was fun. Barbara actually pushed me beyond my comfort zone to do things. And I did a lot. I owe a lot to her because she pushed me to go out, join the press club, be more active. And I think we were good for each other. I call us yin and yang because we're 2 opposites. We're very, very opposite, especially where this book is concerned, because even though we contribute equally to the content, when it comes to actually putting it together so we get a finished product, I'm the person who sits behind the desk, does the layout, gets the paperwork for it together, and gets the actual publication to the printer. Whereas Barbara, she goes out there, she's like front office. She goes out, she makes the connections, she meets and greets people, she sends them copies of the book. So we're like 2 opposite ends or 2 opposite sides of the coin. And we complement each other in establishing our book writing brand. So this particular book got into being because as we get older, I've noticed that I get less patient about reading things. I just want to read the list. I want to see the bullet points. I want to get to the bottom line. And I said to Barbara one day, we should write a book where we just do bullet points about everything we could think of so that there's not a lot of exposition, because I'm getting to the point where I really just want to get to the bottom line of what everything is all about. And she says, I'm with you. And that's how this particular book, the Book of Lists, came into being. Our first book came into being because after I said, who wants to write a book? And Barbara's hand shot up. That was it. We were locked in. We started slowly. We built up until we were writing essays about aging. And as they got more and more, we decided, this is really going to come to being. And we created lists, we did research, we did whatever we needed to do to figure out how to write a viable book on aging. And we wrote over 60 Shades of Gray. And it took us 4 years to get the whole process down, because we didn't know we would need a proposal to try to get an agent. until we were halfway through writing the book. And then we said, oh, we're doing this backwards. So we learned a lot together, and we learned a lot from each other. And it worked out very nicely for us.
You know,
Well,
you
it
used the
sounds like
word
an
just,
amazing collaboration. But I just want to say, Otto and Kristina are so excited because they both make lists. So I think that there are certain personality types that, lists are very helpful, and it's kind of how they start almost every day. It could even be written down, or what's going around in their head every day. But they're so excited. So I know Otto can't wait.
Love a bulleted list.
well,
Love a
yeah,
good list, bulleted. I'm excited to hear about how you devise the chapters and everything like that. But I'm handing this over to Otto right now
well,
because he's
the
ready to
question I
go.
have is, when we look at anything that we read, we kind of take for granted. You use the word process, and the fact that it took 4 years to write this book. I don't think most people get that they realize that, like you used the word, you have to arrive at a general structure. Uh, Now that sounds easy. I've done a little bit of writing, and it sounds easy, but it's not easy. To come up with the idea, and okay, great, you come up with the idea, aging. So now what? Aging covers a lot of ground. When you do that, do you kind of like sit together and sort of brainstorm about what path you want to go down as far as this general structure is concerned?
When Carol asked who wants to write a book, I said I do, but the only thing I want to write about is aging, because even at 50 years old, I felt disregarded. I felt like a disposable paper plate in the garbage. There is just such a lack of respect for older folks. And I even hate saying the word older folks. I mean, it is crazy. I said, look, I go into a doctor's office, let's just say, when there were magazines. There were hints and articles about every age group stopping at 50 years old. So I said, something, we're wise, we're smart, we've been around the block. I am sick and tired of feeling this way. So let's just slap them in the face and write this book. And hello, they have marks.
Plus, we were in our 60s when we came up with this idea. So we were suddenly faced with all the different little things that happen when you get older, that when you're in your 40s and 50s, you may know about it from your parents, but you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. And all of a sudden, you develop all of these little symptoms, the hearing that's not quite right, or the floaters that you think are gnats flying around your face. All of a sudden, little tiny things start to happen, and they're all symptoms of getting older. But they hit you, and you think it's just you for a while. And I said to Barbara, but it's not just us, it's everybody. And
60 million.
Like a club.
60 million of everybody.
Yes.
I think sometimes we put that on ourselves, that,
Yes.
If you act older, and, I mean, there are times where you have no choice. You can't hardly walk, or you can't hear, or whatever.
Right.
But I think sometimes I know people who are younger who tell me that they're old. I think that there's, sometimes we put that on ourselves. You accept that from other people, and I don't think you have to.
You don't. You don't. I think it's very important to carve your path and to know that, we all have these feelings, and a lot of older people don't share these feelings. They think that they are alone, but they are not alone. There are 60 million of us who are of this age with tremendous wisdom, a lot of disposable income, and it's, I think, very sad that the older generation is not respected at all in this country. And we need to find the humor in it. we wanted our readers to let our readers know that they aren't alone. They don't have to feel isolated. There's a lot of humor in the book, a lot of cartoons in the book, and it's funny, it's informative. This is Over 60 Shades of Grey that we're speaking about now, our first book. And we had 17 experts in various fields lend their expertise to the book. So you're learning, you're laughing, and it was just a wonderful experience. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback.
Barbara, you know that we talk a lot about what you're talking about, the kind of stigma on the negative stigma on aging. And
Right.
we talk about the 10,000 people a day turning 65. And the irony of it is that the majority of the population is going to be 60 and over. So
Mhm.
we need a more powerful voice as this generation, because you're so right. Culturally, we have a very different way that we relate to seniors, almost like you just become, the older you get every day or year, you become a little bit more invisible, and that can really change, I think. I mean, these books are great for the humor, but there needs to be some kind of voice for this population. Hey, we are consumers, we're not just getting older and, going into rehabs and nursing homes. We want a vacation. We want to go to dinner at a normal hour and not just, an early bird thing. So I think like programs like this, people like you and Carol are really bringing it into, to the masses that, certainly if there are people out there doing marketing and want to sell products, wouldn't you want to market to a population that still has some money? So it's kind of ironic, a lot of stuff about aging, but a lot of people are talking about using successful aging. Otto, I think, coined a fabulous phrase about retirement, calling it rewirement. You
That's
know,
great.
isn't that great? Yeah,
That's
Otto has a
great.
lot of good zingers,
I'm
but
calling you daily for my zinger uplift, Otto.
absolutely. We actually have to take a quick break, and then we're going to return to speaking with Barbara Paskoff and Carol Pack, who are authors of Over 60 Shades of Grey, the book of lists. And we can't wait to start to hear some of those lists. We'll be right back with Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse and Kristina Lew, Dan Cox. We are speaking with authors of Shades of Grey, the Book of Lies, Over 60 Shades of Grey, the Book of Lists. And
We'll get to the Book of Lies next time.
yeah, that it could be that might have been a little bit of a slip, but we're really interested in hearing all about this book, the list, how you came up with the list. And I know that there's going to be humor, but also like factual stuff, as Carol and Barbara were saying, did a lot of research into pulling this book together. So what are some of the memorable moments that you had coming up with this? And I mean, I'm sure it was a good time also devising this book.
Go ahead, Carol.
It's a tricky question for us because this book was written during a pandemic. So where our first book, we met every week. We were together. We would read to each other. We would laugh about certain things. We would change some lines to make some things funnier. We didn't have that advantage for the book of lists because once COVID started, I didn't even want to leave my house. And Barbara and I pretty much stayed in, she stayed home, I stayed home. We would do FaceTime, and that's how we would have our meetings. So it wasn't as structured as our first book. And we would just come up with lists on our own, and then we would get together. Barbara would send me what she had, and we would go through it. We would see where we had a lot of topics and where we had very few topics, and we tried to have homework for the next week of what we could write. But it wasn't the type of thing where we would get together a lot, except over a computer screen because of the pandemic.
As far as the subjects are concerned, we started throwing out topics. And then on our own, we would be making dinner or whatever the case would be and say, oh my God, this is a good idea. Let me make a list on that. I said to Carol, all of my passwords have been compromised and I wanted to write something. What should I write? She said, write what you're just going through. So I did research on what to do when your passwords are compromised and how to protect yourself and yada, 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 and all that stuff. But we have done a lot of research, and thank God Carol wrote about Medicare and Social Security and the lists, what you need to know. Because we both learned, I knew I went to the doctor. I knew maybe there was a copay, but I didn't really know anything else. Thank you, Carol. I really owe a lot to you and that list. And we wrote what we knew and what we didn't know. We just researched, and it was, you think you're imparting all of this information to the reader. It is amazing how much we learn. We did the list, the book of lists, because oftentimes until you get to the point, until you're looking for the information that you don't get until the third paragraph, I go, at my age, I may not finish the article. Hurry up, give me a bullet point. So there you are with the book of lists. It's really wonderful.
I have a copy of the book, which you can't see great. That I have it. So you sold one book last week, at least. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I haven't gotten to read a lot of it yet. I have read some, but I think my opinion is that, first of all, we talked earlier about general structure. You've got the topics in here: appearance, ageism, attitude. To come up with those topics probably took a while, and then you fill them in. But where I'm going with this is, I think it's a book that you don't have to read this in one sitting. You can go back to this book almost like a reference book, based on like fitness. Maybe you got an issue with fitness right now, so you go to the fitness section and you have a list of the key to fountain of youth, all kinds of different ideas. And I'm looking forward to looking through the book a little deeper. And, the topics are fun. Some of them are very serious, and some of them are not so serious. Like was one here about classical gas, as an example. There's a lot of different topics.
And you have a great table of contents too, so you can jump around and kind of look through the table of contents to see what you're most interested in if you do want to jump around.
It's true. Our first book also was the same way. You don't have to read our books like a novel.
Right.
There's no beginning, middle, and end. There is, but you can pick up wherever you want to be.
Now, talking about novels, though, and this is not what the subject of this is supposed to be, but Carol, you have written a lot of other books. We should probably give a little plug to while we're here.
Absolutely.
I have written a series for young adults called The Library of Elimination. And I said elimination, but I meant illumination. And I've written 5 books in that series. I wrote some books about ghosts called Evangeline's Ghost, about a spy who is assassinated and she comes back down to Earth and tries to make things right. And last summer, I wrote an international spy thriller that I'm currently trying to find an agent for, which is an ongoing process. But I enjoy writing novels because of the escapism of it and the research that goes into it and all the new things that you can learn while you're doing it. And especially in writing a spy novel, I was learning things about the government I never even realized. So it's a fun escape for me. Whereas writing a book like the Book of Lists or Over 60 Shades of Grey is nonfiction. And that's, to me, that's closer to work because I was a journalist for 25 years. So it was nonfiction. So to me, nonfiction is almost like, continuing in the vein of journalism as opposed to the escapism of fiction.
Well, I got one more zinger here then. Barbara,
Yes,
I saw on the internet that you were into ballroom dancing.
I did. Yes, competitive ballroom dancing. I started ballroom dancing 60, I think maybe 65, maybe a little bit younger than that. I needed something to do. I had been retired and I had seen a show called Burn the Floor about dancing. So I had started ballroom dancing at another place and I bumped into somebody food shopping and she said that she was dancing at this one place. I said, what place? And she told me and I started dancing. Not competitively at the time because I was always, I'm very open. I'm unedited, but I felt as though I was I was shy. I didn't want to put myself out there because I didn't want to be judged. I got over that. I started, my teacher said to me, my coach, he said, you have to compete. You're good. Wait a minute, you ready? For your age, nobody would ever believe that you are this age. I said, well, that's a problem right away from what you said, but okay. I loved it. I was in many, many competitions and would still be dancing if it wasn't for COVID. I mean, we traveled all around the country to go to competitions and they were amazing. People, the major competitions had people coming in from all over around the world. It was just amazing. And the talent and the costumes was extraordinary. I remember my husband came with me to one competition. I wasn't dancing at the time. And he said to me at the end of the day, he said, he loves the waltz. So he said, this is the best day I've had in months. So, yeah.
You know, what's interesting is we've talked about this on this show. I'm older than both of you, and we used to go to weddings and whatnot where you actually would dance. Yeah, and I know how to dance. I'm not a ballroom dance contest person, but you would have waltzes and polkas and lindies and rumbas and tangos and whatevers. And now when you go to a wedding, there is no dancing, in my judgment. I mean, it's dancing, but you really don't have to know the steps. You can just
it's a shuffle.
Yeah, right.
It's
You
a
can just
shuffle.
kind of do what you want to do. So we've
Shuffle
talked
off the
about
buffalo.
this as an ageism thing, if you will, that has just gone away, and people who were in that bracket no longer have a place to do that. Really, it used to be there were a lot of restaurants and whatnot that would have dancing, music, whatever, and that's kind of gone away.
I have to tell you, Otto, I have friends and I know of people in their 90s that are in competitions It is amazing. There is no
Wonderful.
age. Yes, there was one woman, it went across, she walks onto the dance floor. Now, this is a competition with her walker. I mean, she was an elderly woman. She's walking on with her walker, hysterical, and she stands there and she shakes. Then she takes one hand and she takes her walker and she just slides it to the other end of the room, of the floor, and she starts to Lindy or swing, whatever it was. I'm telling you, we were just so hysterical because it just goes to the point. You can do anything you want at any age. You just have to get off your butt and do it. Don't let any restrictions get in your way. You know,
Absolutely.
What?
I said, absolutely. We always,
Yeah.
you're never too old for a new journey. Never.
No.
Yeah, one
Only your
comment though,
head
Barbara.
tells you you're
When,
too old.
when you said you were shy, you couldn't
Yeah.
see Carol, but she was laughing on the other screen. I want to squeal.
I know, I felt so self-conscious, you know, it's amazing, but I said, I have to do this. I found it very challenging, but like this, mountains are to be climbed. And when you get to the top and get to the other side, it's an accomplishment. You don't want to walk around a mountain because where's the challenge? And being that I was so shy, I mean, I would have an anxiety attack before the first rumba or whatever it was. I said, this is good. Just the fact that I showed up gave me the strength. And it's very important to challenge yourself at any age.
You are so inspirational, Barbara. I have to tell you, I'm sitting here, you can't see, but I experienced for the first time, I'm in my late 50s. Um, like I want to say ageism. I'm a certified yoga teacher and I teach all ages of yoga and I've always been very active and very fit. I have a lot of endurance. But like in the last few years, I've had old injuries kind of coming back and haunting me in the right knee and my neck and all these things. So I'm very careful now what I do and how I work out. And I know my limits, and limits are really good. Know your limits. Don't do what the
100%.
person next to you is doing on that mat just because they're doing it.
Right.
But I was really surprised. So I recently joined a gym where I'm not going to mention it. It's an hour long. You go with there's a trainer and you go through very rigorous exercises and using
Oh,
different machines and weights and you kind of go from one place to another. And there's a lot of, people supposedly that are older that go there too. And you modify based on, you really should have some experience. But around me are much younger people, really young. And the other night I was there and I was in the weight section and they encourage you to use heavy weights to do certain things and I don't. I just take my weights and I know what I can do and I know that I'm still becoming stronger.
mhm.
And I feel like on both sides of me, your younger people almost they're getting a little annoyed at me. Like they feel that they can impinge on my space what for whatever reason, because I mean, it was just a weird feeling. And I never got that sense before ever about aging because, I just never paid attention, but I felt it, for the first time. I was like, wow, that invisible feeling that I kind of mentioned before. It's
Yeah.
there. So I like hearing how you're just like going there and you're doing it because I need to hear that because I was thinking about, not going back because
No, 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 no. Do not do that
but
because
I'm
Rebecca,
not, I
it's on
enjoy it.
them. It's on them.
Right, right, exactly. And you need to kind of, everybody has to modify at some point. We all go through injuries, but I'm definitely going back because I actually love it. It's a wonderful workout. It's a challenge, and I am able to modify to my fitness level and not to hurt myself. And I talk to the trainers, and they're wonderful. They're like, absolutely don't like when they're doing something I don't want to do. I
Right.
ask them, how do I do it? And they'll show me. So it's great. It's not them. But I love hearing what you're doing. You definitely, I became a yoga instructor later in life too, in my 50s. So there's
There you
always
go.
something out there, and you're so inspirational and you're
Oh,
so right.
You
And
know,
you too, Carol. I mean, just both of you. It's just great
well,
to.
Carol said something during the break before about ages and that she heard from her grandmother when she was about 90 that I think is worthy of saying when everybody can hear it. Uh,
And that would be that my grandmother was talking about herself, and she said that her body was getting older, but inside here, and she pointed to her head, her brain, she said, I'm still 18. And it was her way of telling me that regardless of how I saw age and people, to always remember those people still think of themselves as young and viable. And ageism is a kind of a running thread through all of our books. And two of the things that we've learned and we've promoted about ageism is the best way to fight it is to, one, speak up. If somebody does something to you that's condescending or belittling, you tell them right away, hey, I am more than what you see. You don't know me. You should not speak to me that way. And the
A
second
perfect
thing,
way, Carol, to take a quick break. I'm so sorry. We
that's
have to take
okay.
a very quick break, and we'll come back with Carol Pack and Barbara Paskoff speaking about Over 60 Shades of Gray, the Book of Lists, and just all kinds of positive aging discussions. We'll be back with Project Independence after a short break.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse and Kristina Lew, and we're speaking with Barbara Paskoff and Carol Pack about their recent book, Over 60 Shades of Gray, the Book of Lists, and really just kind of having a great conversation with these two women. It's really just a pleasure. So thankful to have you on. I know, Otto, you had before break, you had a question?
yeah, I'm doing my homework for the show. I see Carol had a website about a lot of things, but one of the things that caught my eye was writers' resources. One of my granddaughters is going to school for communications and writing and whatnot, and I believe it's a skill that is useful in lots of places in this world. Could you just
Sure.
talk a little bit about that writers' resources part of your website?
Writers' resources came about because I was always researching different aspects as I was writing my novels. And I would say to myself, it would be good if I could get back to this website again easily. And the best way to do that is to create a page and put a link to this on the website. That way, not only for me, but for other people, they'll see that and they'll be able to click on it and find this information. And as I would research new things, I would say, oh, this would go good on the writer's resource page. And I would add the link mostly because I have such a lousy memory that it was easy for me to find all of my research in one space, but it was good for everyone else too. I actually haven't thought about that particular page on my website in a while, but it's the kind of thing that after you do it a few times, it almost becomes rote. But I have had people contact me and say that they have found the writer's resources section of my website and said that it was very useful to them. So I could see how your granddaughter might find this useful, especially if she's just starting out.
Which she is. She goes to St. John's University, and she's pretty good, I think, but she's young, so she's got a lot to learn.
Yeah. It's one of those things that as you get older and you get more and more experienced, the learning process just
Well, that
it
was one of
meets
the
up to
things
rise you.
when,
It
when
rises up to meet you. I said it backwards.
during the
ahead.
break earlier, I had mentioned that one of my things I like to do with my grandchildren, particularly, is if they're 12 years old or whatever, I'll say, "Do you know that I was 12 once?" And that's like they look at me like that. They find that hard to believe that I was 12.
Amazing.
So I say, "Well, do you think I know more now than when I was 12? Uh, or do you think when you're 22, you're going to know more than when you were 12?" Just trying to make them think a little bit about the fact that you don't get dumber when you get older. You may get dumber in their eyes about certain things, like who are the top people playing music right now. You know, uh, which I can't name many, but Christina and Rebecca could. Uh, do you know how to use a certain app? Not really, because I don't care about it and I don't use it. Could I learn it if I had to? Yeah. But the point being that these are things that kind of make them, hopefully, when they get older, have some respect for aging. Uh, realizing that, and I think that's where it has to come from. People have to um, teach people to respect aging, and that is only
Right.
one person at a time. You can't force people to learn stuff like that. You either do or you don't.
It's one of those things that we used to say at some of the speaking engagements we had. I would like to go and introduce myself as being 21 years old with 50 years of experience, because that's basically what it's all about. Yes, I still feel like I'm 21 inside, but on top of that, I've got 50 additional years of stuff that I have experienced. And
Also, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
oh, but it's true for everybody you meet. You know, they all have experience. And before we were talking about ageism, and I said there were two things to keep you from actually being treated, two things that can actually fight ageism. And the first one, oh no, I'm going to have a terrible moment
Speak
now
up.
forgetting.
Speak up, you said. Speak up.
Speak up, as was the first one. And the second one is, don't let people think you can't do something that you can do. Like, don't go and play the pity card for yourself and pretend that you're a little bit weaker than you are. If you can do something, show them that you can do it, because that's how it starts. People see you as weaker, and not that they see you as prey, but they
Right.
think that they could take advantage of you in certain little insidious ways. Show them your strength. Show them that you're still viable. Speak up for yourself. And that's how you fight ageism.
Don't be
Yeah.
on the, I have a phrase, the pity pot. Don't be on the pity pot because nobody cares. You know,
You
that's a
know what
fact.
people, excuse me, but people need to realize, and there's a section about this in the first book, everybody has a past. You could be looking at an elderly person. Did they know perhaps they were the captain of the basketball team, softball team, junior prom queen, whatever it was? They're going to get there one day and they're just not going to know what hit them. And it's interesting that they cannot pick up. We have so much wisdom to impart, but we are marginalized. And it's unfortunate more for them. As we were writing the book, I will tell you, quite honestly, I think I was ageist. I had no time for older people. They walk slowly. They were in my way. I'm still a fast walker, kind of. And as I'm starting to scratch beneath the surface, as I'm writing this, I go, oh my God, this is me. I have to learn tolerance. I am that person that I am pushing aside. And this is what I say, we learn so much. It was very awakening for me.
Mhm.
And I have gained a lot of tolerance since writing that first book with Carol.
I don't want to go on too much further without letting our listeners know where they can actually order your books from in this most current book, too.
We
Carol?
are available at all online book retailers. So whether it's Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or Apple iBooks or Kobo, which is Canadian, we are available from online retailers
Smashwords.
and Smashwords, but that's only digital. So if people want to buy a paperback copy, they would go to a place like Amazon or Apple iBooks or Barnes and Noble online. But then they could get digital books, ebooks from all of those places too.
And do you
So
both have, do you have a website or any other thing you would like to share?
Oh, yes, absolutely. www.over60, is spelled out, shades of gray with an A.com.
Okay. And if any of our listeners didn't get this now live, you can always call 311 and ask to speak with Kristina or myself, and we'd be happy to get you this information. And remember, you can also call 516-869-6311 to get in touch with Project Independence.
Can I
No, an
insert
interesting,
something here? I just want to say that prior to COVID, Carol and I would do a number of presentations to various groups across Long Island and New York. We were even at the 92nd Street Y. We are starting to get back into the groove of doing our presentations and selling autographed copies of our books. So if you hear of anything, we're ready to go, guys.
All right, that's great to know. I'm sure we'd love to have you guys come in and speak to our seniors. And we have a lot of different kinds of formats that might be great live. We have an advisory board. We just pull together chats. I think you both would be wonderful and inspiring to come and speak with us. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from Kristina.
you know,
Hope so.
You
an
can't see,
interesting,
but Kristina is shaking her head up and down. Yes, 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 yes.
Excellent.
an interesting area is the digital versus paper. Digital versus paperback. I actually do a Kindle once in a while, but a book like yours, frankly, Book of Lists, I would encourage paperback on that because it's like a reference and you can go back and easily look at it as opposed to if it were digital, in my judgment.
I like your judgment.
Yeah, it just seems like it would make sense because you can have this on your table next to your chair and you can flash through it every now and then.
I liked that you called it a reference book because sometimes I think of it like that it's that kind of information that you want to hold on to, as opposed to a lot of ebooks that you buy that, you read it and then you go on to the next book and you don't think of that previous book that much anymore. So I like the reference idea.
I'd love to know from both of you some of your, I don't want to say favorite lists from the book, or just some of the lists that really stick out and, have the humor that you just love.
Okay, Carol, you go.
I was going to say, not that I remember it for the humor, but I remember it for living through lists. Like, one of the things I realized when the pandemic hit was that once I no longer could go to a salon and get my nails done, and my acrylic nails, my fake nails grew out, that I had really weak paper thin nails. And in reading, I found out that it's also, it's a problem because of acrylics, but it's also a problem as you get older, and because of the loss of nutrients and hormones, older nails, their makeup changes. They become either paper thin and soft, or they become brittle and dry and break more easily. And that became a list because I was living through it. And I find that's what inspires me to come up with these lists. If something is affecting me directly, I'm going to write a list about it. I was thinking of getting a medical ID bracelet, and I said, well, what do I put on it? I started researching it, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, I don't need a bracelet. I need a whole cast for my arm to fit all this information on. And this is how I would come up with my list. Now, Barbara, why don't you jump in and talk about yours?
I was just going to ask if there's a medical bracelet alert that has something about broken nails. Is that like, broken, rush to salon?
That's it. Fix me up before you take me to the hospital.
There you go. Go ahead, Barbara.
I think one of my most interesting times writing a list was the list, I forgot the title of it, of fantastic firsts, or people over 60 and what they're still accomplishing. And it was so interesting to see how, Carol, I forgot the title, but how many,
remember.
Well, yeah, and this is another thing, so much for memory.
That's why you had to write a lot of stuff.
Gotta write it all down.
It was how many people over 60 are so vibrant and productive. Look at all the movie stars, celebrities, inventors, female firsts, male. It is amazing. And it really is a lesson. People, who was it that wrote her first novel? Wait, Grandma Moses, how old was she? She was not a young girl.
No.
Anyway, so, I mean, yes, I enjoyed that. And of course, me, I always enjoyed the sex things where, excuses not to have sex at my age. Because, that's a schlep. Anyway, so that's a list. And what to wear and what not to wear. The do's and the don'ts.
Good one.
And if you remember years ago when there was a thing called etiquette,
right?
What they did then and what they do now, as far as pulling out a chair for a woman to sit down, they didn't shake hands, they didn't do anything. You wore white gloves. Oh, to think about all of that. But to tell you the truth, I really don't even have a favorite.
Right.
One of the things, your book has a lot of cartoons in it, some of which I had a chance to look at are very funny. How did you go about, you didn't create these cartoons, I don't think.
We bought them.
Yeah, so you had to do a lot of homework as far as.
That was the best part, Otto. The best part.
You see 150 cartoons in the book, but we must have looked at thousands of cartoons. And there were some that we absolutely loved, but didn't want to use in the book because they were, well, I don't want to say they could have offended people, but basically that's it. They could have offended people. And there were other cartoons that they were cute, but they weren't our kind of humor. So we go through a lot of cartoons and do a lot of research on cartoons before we select the ones we need. And sometimes it's difficult.
But fun. It's a very fun process.
There's 150 in that book. That's a lot of cartoons.
It is a lot of cartoons.
Barbara, you stated in the beginning, we are coming to the very end of this segment. And
I don't want to go home.
I don't want you to go home. But I'm wondering if your daughter at 16 realizes that she catapulted you into this life of back to college, and it was you realize because of her, hey, I need a life. Is she?
So I owe her.
Yeah.
I truly owe her for being a teenager.
Yeah.
And you know something, Rebecca, that is such an interesting question because I don't know. I mean, I've told you the story, and this is why I went back to school, but we really didn't go that deep.
Right.
Now I will. Thank you for bringing that up. I
Wonderful.
love that.
Happy.
Love it.
Well, with that, we have to come to the end of this segment, and I want to thank you both so much, Barbara Paskoff and Carol Pack, for joining us today. And we know now how to get this book, and we know that we are going to connect again, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. We all wish you both such a happy and healthy new year coming up. Thank you again so much for joining us today.